Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're going to tackle a problem that, let's be honest, drives people crazy in almost every big company. Why do teams like IT, HR, or finance so often feel like they're just spinning their wheels, totally overwhelmed, and not really making a difference? Well, we're going to dive in and find out not just why it happens, but how you can actually fix it.
Okay, let's kick things off with a story about a guy named Steven. He's a head of innovation, and he's got more projects, more requests, more everything than his team can possibly handle. And his take is, look, we don't have time to stop and think about strategy. We're already drowning. Sound familiar? I bet it does. But here's the counterintuitive part, the big twist. That feeling of being completely swamped, that's not a reason to put off strategy. It is the single biggest flashing neon sign that you need a strategy, like yesterday. It's proof you're stuck in a trap, trying to do everything for everyone, which means you're not really winning at anything.
You know, it's pretty much a given that a company needs a big picture corporate strategy to succeed. But we tend to forget that all those internal teams, the functions like IT, HR, R&D, they're the ones who have to make that strategy happen. So you might be asking yourself, do these support teams really need their own separate strategy? And it's a fair question. But here's the secret. Every single team, every function already has a strategy. It doesn't matter if it's written down or not, it's happening right now in everything your team does. See, your strategy isn't some dusty binder on a shelf. It's just the logic behind the choices your team makes every day, and maybe even more important, the things it chooses not to do. When finance says no to a project unless it has a 7-year cash payout, that's a strategic choice. When IT decides to outsource development to save money, that's a strategic choice. The real question is, are you making these choices on purpose, or are they just happening to you? And that right there is where things usually go off the rails. Because when you don't consciously choose a strategy for your function, it just defaults into one of two patterns. And spoiler alert, they're both recipes for failure. We call these two defaults the servile strategy and the imperial strategy. Now, they sound like total opposites, and they are, but as you'll see, they both end up in the exact same place, making the function irrelevant. First up, you've got the servile function. This is the ultimate yes-man team. Its whole identity is built around serving the business units. It says yes to every single request, no matter how small or off base. The result? It's like a waiter trying to serve 50 tables at once. They're overworked, spread way too thin, nothing they do is particularly great, and they are always living in fear of being outsourced. And then you've got the complete opposite, the imperial function. This team thinks it's its own little empire. It puts its own projects and priorities first, usually chasing the latest, hottest, best-in-class trends. You know, like an IT department that insists on building a state-of-the-art AI center just because Google has one, whether the business actually needs it or not. They end up bloated, arrogant, and totally out of touch with what the company is trying to achieve. Okay, but here's the good news. It absolutely does not have to be this way. Your team doesn't have to be a doormat or a dictator. There is a clear, proven way to build a real strategy that can turn a simple support function into a genuine competitive advantage. And you know what? The framework for this is actually super straightforward. It's just a two-phase process. First, you define the problem. That means getting real about where you are right now. And second, you consider alternatives. That's where you start exploring what's possible. All right, so let's dig into phase one. This part is all about brutal honesty. You have to ask yourselves, based on the choices we're making right now, what's our actual strategy? Are we being servile or are we being imperial? And then the second big question, what does our company actually need to do to win in the market, and how critical are we to making that happen? Okay, once you've faced the music on where you are now, it's time for phase two. This is where you get to make some powerful new choices. The first question is, where will we play? This just means picking your primary internal customer. And you have to pick. You cannot serve everyone equally well. And the second question is, how will we win? This is about defining your unique value. What can you do for that customer that is way better than any other option, including just hiring an outside firm to do it? Now, I know this can all sound a bit theoretical, so let's make it real. We're going to look at an absolutely brilliant example of this in action, the talent, or, HR function at Four Seasons Hotels. So here was the massive problem facing the entire hotel industry. Before the pandemic hit, the average annual employee turnover rate was a mind-blowing 73.8%. The default strategy for pretty much every hotel was to treat their frontline staff, the housekeepers, the bellhops, the front desk clerks, like they were disposable cogs in a machine. Labor was just a cost you had to minimize.
But the founder of Four Seasons, Isidore Sharp, he saw the world completely differently. He had this powerful belief that true luxury wasn't about the chandeliers in the lobby, it was about incredible service. And that service could only come from incredible people. For him, employees weren't a cost, they were the company's core competitive advantage.
So the talent function at Four Seasons made a set of choices that were completely radical for their industry. For where to play, they decided to focus on the frontline staff as their #1 customer, not just the general managers. And for how to win, they decided to hire for attitude above all else, and then invest a ton of money into training and building real career paths for them. And this one strategic choice, it changed everything. It created this amazing, powerful, virtuous circle. Because their employees stayed so much longer than at other hotels, Four Seasons could actually afford to invest 10 times more in training for each person. That investment created happier, more skilled employees, who then delivered that legendary service that allowed Four Seasons to completely own the luxury market. Now, here's what's so cool about this. This whole way of thinking isn't just for a star function like talent at Four Seasons. This framework applies to every single team in a company, even the ones that are seen as, just boring support functions. I mean, think about a team like risk and compliance. For most companies, that's not where they're going to find their big competitive edge, but it's absolutely essential. And if a function like that doesn't make smart strategic choices, it's not just wasting money. It could actually put the company's entire strategy in jeopardy. Risk function still has to make these choices. Who are they really serving? Is their primary customer the frontline workers who need basic safety training, or is it the board of directors who need sophisticated strategic advice? And how will they win? Are they going to be trusted, hands-on partners, or are they going to build super efficient, scalable online systems? These are all very real strategic choices. So the big takeaway here is this. A corporate function doesn't have to be a passive order taker or a little tyrant building its own empire. By taking the time to consciously define its problem and then deliberately choose where to play and how to win, any team can stop being a frustrating cost center and start being a vital engine for the whole business. And that brings us to the final question, the one for you to take back to your own world. Start looking at the teams in your organization, the ones you work with every day. Can you see the choices they're making? And can you figure out what their unwritten strategy really is? Is it servile? Is it imperial? Or is it something truly strategic? The answer tells you almost everything you need to know.